if the organization as it is in the level of please get stuff for me. I want to be able to produce this, this, and this, and maintenance need to work. Okay, if they're in that place, you're not going to talk, hey, we're thinking about category management, we're going to do this huge project about. No, you start with building the basics, building the trust, taking these steps and building a really good foundation for you to springboard from to take the next step. And you should realize that you won't do this in a year. You may take 2 or 3 years to come up to a good solid level where you're at with the organization, together with the organization, to be able to take the next leap.
Thank you for joining another edition of The Never Ending Climb for a Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement. Today, we are joined by Robert Byström. And Robert believes so deeply, and I love this, in a cool brain, warm heart, and clean hands, and that this will help you connect with people to drive better business outcomes. Robert, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Sean. It's great to be here.
I love the empathy and the warmth, the approachability that comes from this kind of philosophy. And it aligns so nicely, so beautifully with the never-ending climb. And this idea that you've had the experience of a very mature procurement organization, and now working with a new organization to you that is building a procurement function for the first time. And this is a whole new experience. And we know that we don't just dive in with advanced category management, but you have to start somewhere. And I know a lot of people would really love to hear from you. How did you decide where to start? Where did you go? What did you do? Who did you talk to?
Yeah, when I started here, it's I have had my 3-year anniversary now, so it's 3+ years.
Nice.
But when I started, we have 5 production units and so on. We're in sawnwood products mainly. So when I started here as a head of procurement, I thought about this classical, 100 days thing. Okay, what will I do when? But the main thing is actually, I understood that quite early, that you need to get the connections with the people, even if it's one part is absolutely kind of head of each production unit, the head of maintenance, the head of production. Absolutely, those are great people and they know a lot. And what I saw was that, well, it's a very immature organization when it comes to procurement and how they work with procurement. And that's okay. That's where we were. That was the starting point. So I thought about it like, well, I really need to know how the day-to-day really works, because someone orders things and they come and they're installed in production and they work and so on. But how do they do that? How does that work? And what's their issues every day? So I asked one of the heads of maintenance that, hey, could I join your group for maintenance? And he was like, absolutely. Tonight at 10 this evening, the night shift starts. You can join them if you want to. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'll do that. So I joined them during the night and put my blue mechanic suit on and get some dirt under my nails and just had a conversation with these people that actually did the work every day and were responsible for ordering the parts and so on. And we changed motors in production and we did this and that. But I really got a good connection with them by just, okay, how does this work, and being curious about their day-to-day.
Curiosity is so beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it helped a lot. I did somewhat things like this in the other production units too, and so on. But in the end, this helped me so much over time, because I got to understand quite early on what worked, what didn't work, what was their hurdles and problems on working. We in procurement, we like to the process, follow this process, do exactly like this, and well, that's good. But in the end, is it easy to do that for the people that are going to follow it?
Pretty important question.
Because what are their day-to-day issues? If one example that we had was a person that actually he followed the process, and I did a requisition and said, well, every time I put in a requisition, it takes at least a week before procurement even touches it. I was like, oh, interesting. I'll have a look at that. Absolutely. And then I was in another production unit and I heard a bit of the same things, and I was like, well, let's see. I have to check this because I'd rather work with facts, and I do like to listen, but I don't take what people say always for facts. So I had a look at it, and in the end, it wasn't really an issue with it. It was an issue with the process because each cost center that you put requisition to had one person approving it, and sometimes that person was out and they didn't have a replacement, but usually it could take almost a week before it was approved, and when it was approved, it took usually half a day until procurement took action on it. So I took these facts and talked to them and said, hey, these are the facts, but you see this first part, we should do something about it. What ideas do we have? And had them also help coming up with a solution, and got by doing that, I got quite a good buy-in.
Yeah.
So in the end, we did it was a very easy fix. We put in more people that were actually able to approve in each cost center, and that were actually supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So you had a group of people that could approve it, and you had more of a structured on what levels they could approve for, rather than just one person up to a very high amount. You structured it, so it made the process run smoother when you did it the correct way. So I think that's understanding how the process actually works in the day-to-day is really important, and absolutely very important when you start out. And you usually hear, hey, you should do some quick wins and you should do some savings and so on. Absolutely, you should do that too. But doing this quick, easy wins early within the organization to create that trust, it pays off. I was going to say tenfold, but it's more than that probably. I haven't done the calculations, but it really pays off.
Absolutely. What I absolutely love about it is whether it's something like lean engineering, and they talk about going to the Gemba, going to where work really happens, or you talk about needing to go and build relationships with people to actually connect with them and understand what really matters to them. And where else do you get to hear that feedback of, well, I mean, if I follow the process, it takes a week, so I go around it. Of course they're going to go around it if it takes a week. And this idea that 1 week is actually within their team's control, within their department's control, or within that plant's control, this is often not the kind of thing that immediately occurs to outside team members. And it takes that extra bit of homework to go and look at it. The other thing that I love about this is that you really got curious. Because it's easy to get frustrated that they're blaming us for it taking a week, or, because that's easily what it could feel like. And some people
getting defensive. If you get defensive, you won't solve anything really.
Exactly. So in your language, the cool brain, to me, this is that really dig deep, understand what matters, but that balancing of empathy with some of that innovation to go and understand, why does this happen? And then how do you adapt to that? How do you overcome that? And by identifying where the delay really was, and then bringing the facts back to them and saying, hey, I took your feedback. Number one, you listened. And then number two, you went and did something about it. Number three, you brought some facts back that are actionable. And then you were able to go and sit down and have a conversation. Now, every interaction that you have with them after that goes so much smoother because you've set the connection. And I think this is one of those things that so many people that are trying to build a new procurement team, or they're trying to take over or take on leadership of a new procurement function, even if it's just one category, they're stuck a little bit because so many of them go directly to the process. And then they're upset if somebody's not following the process, and then they either blame or get defensive. Neither of those things are helpful, but you got curious. And when you get curious, so many great things happen because it's very difficult to get upset or angry when you're curious. How do you have that conversation with those team members about why cost matters, or how do you connect that conversation with somebody that's fixing a motor to the company objectives and how important that is to spend the company money wisely?
That's a really good question, because you you seem to just beforehand think that they know why it's supposed to work this way, and that someone has told them that, okay, you should follow this process, and this is why, because, hey, we're a publicly traded company, we have some certifications when it comes to ISO and so on, we have this and this, and we have, owners that want us to spend money wisely and so on. But usually when you have people that have some responsibility for a cost center, for example, when they have started, they might not have been properly educated on why and what the responsibility entails and so on, and just it can be that way. And then if you're curious and you ask some questions and you say, okay, well, this is why, and this is why we need to follow this process, but how can I help you, or how can we help each other rather to follow this process as smoothly as possible? Because then they will come up with this, and this doesn't really work. Okay, great. What can we do about them? Is it some things are you can't do that much about it? It's just to say, this is what it is, accept it. But then there's quite a few things that you can do, can change and make easier in the day-to-day. For example, you can have such an easy thing as, why does this field always pop up in our ERP system? That's incorrect. Oh, well, it's, I don't know why, but I'll look into it. And then you look into it and I say, okay, it's something in the setup, and then you solve it. So they don't have to get that pop-up every time, and they need to redo everything that they already written into a requisition, for example. Okay, great. That was a system issue. Fix it. These small annoying things that is in the day-to-day, if you do a few of those, like I said before, you get a good amount of trust in the organization rather.
Yeah.
But this guy will help me in my day-to-day and get some of these things I don't really want to do off my table and make them, or at least make them easier.
Yeah.
So
because you listen. This is that people want to be listened to. And one of the other things that I think we were touching on before we pressed record was the language that we use. And how easy it is if you're from IT or if you're from procurement and you're talking to somebody in maintenance, and all of a sudden that person is like, come again?
Yeah.
Or you say one thing and they think you're meaning something very different than what you really meant, or vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah, we are, I'm not going to say good at it, but procurement, we kind of tend to use procurement lingo a bit too much. And sometimes I've seen, not at this place, but at other, it's been, okay, we do category management. Okay, then you're within procurement, and you all have different views on what category management is and what it entails and how the process works and so on. Then you realize, okay, first we need to align internally within procurement. What does it entail? And then the next, should we talk about category management within the organization? And now you're in a very more mature organization than we're starting to talk about here. But maybe they're not at the same pace or at the same place as the procurement function is or want to be. And you have to kind of adapt to that. And I would say it's a fine line, or if you have a rubber band, you can be in a bit of different places, but at some point you're too far from each other for you to understand each other and being able to work together. And if the organization as it is in the level of, please get stuff for me, I want to be able to produce this, and this, and maintenance need to work. Okay, if they're in that place, you're not going to talk, hey, we're thinking about category management, we're going to do this huge project about. No, you start with building the basics, building the trust, taking these steps and building a really good foundation for you to springboard from to take the next step. And you should realize that you won't do this in a year. You may take 2 or 3 years to come up to a good, solid level where you're at with the organization, together with the organization, to be able to take the next leap. And you can install or invest in a lot of programs and systems and so on and so on. But in the end, if you don't have an organization and people that can actually work with it and are on that level together, it's just a waste of money. It really is. But there is a place for this. There is a place, but at the right time on where you are. In your journey.
If there's no agreement that this is the new way to do it, putting in a system to do it the new way is simply not agreed to.
No, it's not.
It's kind of pervasive in a way, where there's so many. I mean, I guess there's a whole bunch of examples. I know we were talking a little earlier, and you have somebody in your life that believes that might travel too much. I know I was sharing that I was in Mumbai for 10 days, so I recently got feedback that I've traveled a bit too much. Once I came back, of course, the jet lag, I was maybe not at my best for the next few days after I got back either, as I'm, barely making it to 8 p.m. before I go to bed. When I think about the idea that there's a tremendous opportunity to build the connections, to really connect with people, understand what is getting in their way today, and then go help them with that, even in small ways, but have the conversation around, hey, this part we can't change, but this part we can, so let's talk about how we fix this, how we make this better together. So much of the best things come from that. And it comes from that warm heart that just builds connections. It really does. And I love the way you're demonstrating building better business outcomes with that warm heart, because I think there's enough examples out there of the opposite of that being applied in business. And so thank you for leading by example with that. I'm grateful for you taking the time today, Robert. And I know others who are earlier in their journey or facing some similar challenges that you've overcome can learn from you today. Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you, Sean. It was great being here. Pleasure.
Ja, tack.